and being on right now.
What up?
What is up? The Sports Bag Bros podcast is back on the air for our weekend, which is
Yes, sir.
Thursday. And we're heading into this weekend with some big games in college football in particular. We don't even have to wait all the way till Saturday to get those games because the Pac-12 decided they wanted to have their championship game on a Friday, violating some of these high school football games and state championships.
Yeah, I was mistaken when I said the other day there would be 3 night games. Washington, Oregon is tomorrow night, starts 7 o'clock Central Time. So there's only 2 night games Saturday.
Yeah, but it's going to be a whole lot of games. I can dig it, though, man. This is that time of year where even college football takes a little bit away from what the NFL is doing. And this weekend here, we can talk about in a few minutes how the NFL doesn't have many matchups, but the matchup that they do have, the Philadelphia Eagles, the 49ers getting together, bro, in Philly, though. So we'll get a chance to see who reigns supreme. We were just talking about this yesterday between, where it's not as clear cut for San Francisco. We'll find out now for sure.
Yeah, it's a big game, especially I want to say for Philly because they widen the gap and they'll have that much better chance to get the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So when they see San Francisco, they'll get them at home again.
Yep. And, it's hard playing in Philly. It's hard playing in a regular season game in Philadelphia. San Francisco, I don't ever believe, I haven't been there, but I don't believe they've ever really had that home field advantage where people from the outside was like, man, I don't want to go to San Francisco. They didn't want to go to San Francisco because the team was that good, not because there was some fear of the atmosphere or this is just legendary. You don't want to go to Green Bay. You don't want to go to Pittsburgh. You probably don't want to go to Dallas. Certain places for sure you don't want to go. Philly's another one of those teams. Even the Raiders when they were winning. When they weren't winning, you still didn't want to go to Oakland when they were in Oakland or even LA.
You don't even want their fans coming to your stadium.
You don't want their fans there either. They're going to make things worse. This 49ers fan base, they're looked at as the wine and cheese group, the Silicon Valley group, and they never really get that respect I think they deserve for being as rabid as they are. But I guess when you
Raider Nation is crazy, man. Raider Nation is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, that's the huge game for this weekend.
That should be a good one. The 49ers pull it out. The race tightens, and they put more pressure on the Eagles to continue winning their games. They only have 1 loss right now, but they'll be 1 game closer to the Eagles, and they'll have the tiebreaker with the head-to-head victory.
And how about Chase Young getting a chance to go back and play against Philadelphia after being in the NFC East with the Washington Commanders? I mean, he's familiar with those guys, playing them twice a year since he's been in the league when he hasn't been hurt. So, yeah, that's going to be something to see that pass rush period. See how Jalen Hurts deals with
the crew. Coming with the crew this time.
That's what they're doing.
Not just some guys coming along for the ride.
Now, will it be a wrecking crew? That's what we need to know. But offensively, Philly will have their hands full there too. They're not getting the sacks and the volume they were doing last season, and we know that 49ers offense, when everyone is healthy, or at this point in the season as healthy as they're going to be, they just go like a machine offensively. So, yeah, absolutely a huge game. What was looked at as a huge game going into the season and based on what teams were looking at like and how you projected them, the Cincinnati Bengals are coming here to Jacksonville on Monday night. So we have Monday Night Football coming here to Jacksonville next Monday. But with Joe Burrow not being there, just another game. But is it really? Because the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, he still hasn't put the numbers up that we thought, but I don't think it matters anymore. But anything can happen on Monday night. And I still look at this Jaguar team as one of those teams where something can happen, and the least likely thing would be a loss with a team without Joe Burrow, and it possibly may happen.
I don't see that happening. I tell you what, if you watched the highlights, or not that I broke down any film, but I saw some highlights. That defensive line was doing things to confuse the offensive line and get pressure to C.J. Stroud. And, he's a young quarterback, and now the Bengals have a backup quarterback. So I'm pretty sure they can do the same thing. And Lawrence seemed to get into a rhythm last week. I don't know if it was because, hey, this is a big game. We need this one. They're on our heels. We want to get some distance between us. and now you're talking about the bright lights Monday night. You know,
Yep.
he's always been the big game performer. You know, took Clemson to those national championship games.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect another big game out of him. I don't see any way the Bengals win.
No, I can just see being complacent. Being around here in Jacksonville for years, I've seen when they had teams that should have done more than they had done, get a bit complacent. But under Doug Peterson, it hasn't really been like that. They have gotten better this time of year, as we saw last year, the turning point, and then all of a sudden winning all of those games, going into the playoffs, going deep into the playoffs until losing. That's what gave this year's expectations of them not just getting to the playoffs, but really making a push for the Super Bowl. And right now, currently, the number one seed for the AFC, the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the game is going to be in front of their fans. Look, I'm not a Jaguar fan, probably never will be. But come on, I don't hate the Jaguars at all. And I enjoy their fans finally having something to be happy about. Because I do remember the time when I was here early on in the 2000s, when I moved to Jacksonville in 2000, how empty the stadium was. How Winn-Dixie, the local grocery store chain, had to buy the tickets to give away to people just so they wouldn't get those blackouts. They were blacked out so often. Now, you know what? I really didn't even know what a blackout was until I came to Jacksonville. I would always see it like in the fine print. And it might be something to blackout rules. Just kind of threw it away like blackout rules. Never thought about it. Came here to Jacksonville, right. You found out what a blackout was. And it had nothing to do with JEA, which is the electric company here in Jacksonville. It was just
that's similar to when I moved to Indianapolis. Harbaugh was the quarterback there, and he had them in the playoffs. And I didn't really care for I'm a Bears fan. I didn't care about the coach, but the city was hyped, man. The city was getting lit. They were having functions downtown, and I lived like 4 minutes from downtown. My friends were like, "Hey, man, you going to the tailgate?" "No, man, I'm a Bears fan. I ain't going." "Come on, man, we'll pick you up. Let's go." All right, so I went, man. Downtown was packed.
Yes,
I had a great time. I was like, you know what, I can roll with this. As long as the coach is good, city's gonna be excited. It makes things better for me here.
Yeah, I've seen the thick and thin here in Jacksonville when the team wasn't so good and saw it grow to being something that looked like it might have been good, and then it regressed, and now we are where we are right now as a Jaguars franchise. And looking at what the Jaguar fans do here and what the city, this is a huge, small city. I think it's like number 13 now in terms of the metropolitan area, and population-wise and so forth. But I tell you what, it still has a lot of small-time virtues. People still kind of look at the cat in the tree and look for the fireman to get them kind of thing. But Jacksonville, when this team is on, and even when it's not on, those fans that were 5 years old, maybe 3 years old, going to those games when the Jaguars came in 1995 and saw that immediate success, those are now today's ticket holders. Those are today's season ticket holders that are now grown and have their jobs in their own family. We now have generations, plural, of Jaguar fans, and that's why you're getting all of these fans showing up. Even when they're losing now, you still have fans showing up, and they complain just like anybody else's fans when they don't win when they're supposed to. They just don't accept it as we're just the Jaguars. Now you go to the NFL draft, and you see fans from the Jaguars in the audience. Even before it went all these other places, I would go to the draft in New York. And when I would go there, I would still sit with the people, even though I had my press pass. And I would still sit with all the people I've gone to the draft with since I've been going to the draft in 1990. And I remember one time the Jaguar table was completely empty out of all of the NFL teams. Saints fans took the Jaguar placards, turned them inside out, wrote Saints on it, and had extra seats at their table. That's how it was.
I got to say, I don't like the new format of the draft.
I hate that. I hate it.
I hate it too. I prefer the Saturday morning. I don't like it. Starts on Thursday night now, right?
Yeah, and it's just a 4-day.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Yeah. But whatever. Let's move on. I don't know how we got in the NFL. This show is entitled Hunter and Shador Leaving Boulder. We haven't even gotten to that.
Exactly. We had like a little preamble. This was pretty much the preamble because the next NFL week is starting tonight. The Seattle Seahawks going to Dallas. Short week, playing Dallas. Dallas 9-point favorite. But we talked a little NFL first.
Just prepare yourself for all the Dallas fans talking crazy.
They've been talking a lot of craziness over the past several years with no results. So we'll keep on continuing that. They're just as good.
It's like they have no perspective. There's no perspective. Like To them, a win is a Super Bowl win every week. They could beat the Panthers and yeah, look what Dak Prescott did. Come on, man.
Yeah, everyone's beat up on the Panthers right now, but going to what you were just talking about, college football, we talked about the transfer portal and all the different teams and even the Canes yesterday. Tyler Van Dyke leaving and going into the transfer portal. Now, Deion Sanders. Regardless of what happens in college football, he still rises to the top, not because he's doing well, but because he's prime time and because either they want to laugh at him, ridicule him, or saying, just look at him scratching their head. His son, Shadua, as we know, the quarterback for Colorado, and Travis Hunter, the once upon a time #1 athlete in high school football coming out of Georgia, was supposed to go to Florida State, reneged, or not even reneged, shunned Florida State, went to an HBCU, historically black college university, Jackson State, Walter Payton's alma mater, to play under Deion Sanders. And now he's in Colorado, followed him there. And now I think even Deion is encouraging his son and Travis to go check other options. What's going on here?
I don't know. I don't know why Deion would do that. I'm really at a loss for words because when I saw the report, I didn't think Deion had anything to do with it. But now you're saying that he could be encouraging them. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you want to encourage your son to go play for another school unless you feel yourself inadequate? Like you're not developing him properly.
Well, I don't think
Deion. But then again, Deion was a cornerback.
And that's true. And I'm just thinking that Deion, he sees the writing on the wall. Not that he's out of the door, but he sees the writing on the wall that this may take a little bit longer than he would expect or he expected coming in. These guys don't have the time. These guys were already with their eligibility, with the remaining eligibility, going. And so it wasn't like they were coming in as freshmen and they were going to help build the program. But this is the transfer portal. So chances are with Deion and doing what he's done, brought in over 80 players that are different from last year's team onto the roster. These aren't all freshmen coming in. These are going to be a litany of people from freshmen to seniors to super seniors. You know what I mean? That are coming in, redshirt seniors coming in,
could be,
or whatever COVID had brought.
Graduates.
You know what I mean? Graduates, the whole nine. So, and the school that came up that they both may be going is Florida State. Well, Deion's alma mater. And in some circles, people were claiming that Deion would have gone to Florida State, but Mike Norvell kind of erased that with his success this year. But if they end up at Florida State, Travis Hunter goes back to where he probably should have started to begin with. Shadua, on the other hand, went to an HBCU, didn't win the Black College Championship in 2 tries, goes to Colorado, puts up numbers, but force-fed numbers it looks. And now if he goes to Florida State, the caveat is Jordan Travis isn't going to be there. However, he's not going to have the job handed to him as he had handed to him in Colorado. He's going to have to compete for the job. And I don't know if I'm sure he could win the job.
I don't think he'd go there unless he thought he could win the job. Nobody's going to go with any intentions of riding the bench or holding the clipboard with the visor.
No. Your intentions can be as great as hell, but when your talent shows in spring practice and the way you pick up the offense and the way things look overall, then what happens? It just, I don't know. I mean, as a quarterback,
I don't know. I think more highly of him than you do. Well, if it's not Travis Jordan, then I don't know who's going to be there to beat him out.
No, Travis Jordan not going to be there. This was his last year, and especially with the injury. And then on top of that, what about other transfers that may want to go to Florida State as well? They are a top team as well. They're going to probably KJ Jefferson, for all intents and purposes, if he doesn't go with Mac Brown in North Carolina, as we spoke about yesterday, does he play for Florida State or is he a player for Florida State? Somebody like that. I mean, I don't know, but at Florida State, I mean, look, players have egos like anyone else. Regardless of where they're coming from, especially if you're playing on the Power 5 level, if you're going into the transfer portal, it's because you believe that you're going to be able to play with somebody in particular. And like last year, Tyler Buckner coming from Notre Dame and going with his offensive coordinator from Notre Dame to Alabama. He's still on the bench because Jalen Moreau finally developed, and it doesn't look like he's giving up that job anytime soon. So we're talking about a player who probably thought he had a chance. I thought he had a chance if you looked at the early videos of being out Jalen Monroe. Little did he know that Jalen Monroe turned out to be the player he is, and Buckner will never see the light of day on an Alabama offense unless there's an injury to Jalen Monroe. And even then, Ty Simpson may go in before him because there's more time for him to develop.
He'll probably be back in the portal this year.
Yeah, you know what? And the way things are with these players jumping back and forth to the portal, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's just so many. Every day, one player is jumping into the portal and they're outshining the previous player who jumped into the portal.
Hey, I saw your boy Cristobal got an Ohio State commit.
Yes, a flip. We got a flip out the defensive end, defensive tackle. Scott, I forgot his first name, but hey, bro, anytime we could get a 5-star. See, the problem with Cristobal has never been recruiting. I've talked about that several times, even over the years, and we've seen the issue with the sideline. We don't even have to look at Georgia Tech. We can just look at some of that play calling that when we was there just a couple of weeks ago and seeing that some of the play calling was suspect and there could have been better play calling. Yeah, but Mario Cristobal has been known for his recruiting. He brought FIU, 8 wins that year that he was there, and then goes to Oregon, brings in fantastic players there, and then he's now in Miami doing the same. The coaching is where he needs to step up. And of course, he was at Alabama as a recruiter and as a coach. And while he was there, he was recruiter of the year, according to 247 Sports and a couple of other outlets. And he was responsible for that same talent that ended up winning a national championship for Alabama. So he can get the groceries. He needs to be a better chef. According to Bill Parcells, we need to say.
Man, I saw somebody's losing 3 quarterbacks to the transfer portal. I can't remember who it was.
Ooh,
I'm trying to look it up, but obviously players are unhappy there. Man, I can't remember what school it was.
Man, but you see how it goes, though. How one after the other, one is trumping the other. Oh, so-and-so is leaving. Man, that's a big loss. Then the next day or a few hours later, man, so-and-so from even one of the better teams.
But you would think after the 2 leave, the third one would be like, well, I got no competition. This is my job. But he's like, screw it, I'm out of here too.
But could it be the same coach there, though? Because it could be a coach that's probably leaving or an interim coach that might be there, and they just wanted to get out once the old coach left. It could be one of those scenarios.
But yeah, it could be. I'm not sure. I'm trying to look it up.
So Graham Mertz is coming back to the Gators next year. I think Graham Mertz is a solid quarterback. I don't think he's anything special. And if he went to the draft, he'll be one of those 5th rounders, maybe. I mean, not a Tom Brady 5th rounder, but he might be one of those late round draft picks. Nothing special. Maybe something serviceable if he had a chance to play. Kind of Chase Daniels that we talked about. To go out, just being a good player.
Chase Daniels.
You said Chase Daniels, right?
You said Chase Daniels.
No, I'm saying Chase Daniels, right?
About what?
I mean, as far as the player he was when he was in the NFL.
Oh, the perennial backup?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. No, because we're talking college football. You said Chase Daniels.
Oh, no, when I mentioned Chase Daniels, when he was in college, he wasn't anything. He was okay, but he wasn't expected to do huge things in the NFL. Graham Mertz,
on his YouTube videos, he seems to break down film very well, much better than he played on the field anyway.
Well, another reason
I think he probably just lacked the arm talent, but like he sees it, and he tells you on the videos, this is the progression. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. This is a dig route. This is a dagger. This is a go or whatever. Mm-hmm. He knows his shit. He just couldn't get it done with his arm.
Exactly. He probably didn't have the arm talent, or he did not process that information that we talked about even last week that you may have to process in that small window of time. The things that Peyton Manning was able to do. And when I told the story just last week as well with David Garrard being the 2nd string backup here in Jacksonville, and Tom Coughlin when he came as a 4th rounder from East Carolina, over 10,000 yards, all of these accolades. We're saying how David Garrard knew the entire playbook. He was like, this is one of the brightest players I've ever run into. He knew the entire playbook, but then it came down to processing that information, which David Garrard never got on an elite level. It's still like he was still reading while he was out there. It never became instinctive. It was still more thinking than just doing. And he was a pretty average quarterback because of it. He's had his
I
moments.
don't think
but nothing
Gerard is
special.
the only one who has that issue. There's a lot of guys.
Oh, no, what I'm saying. I mean, I was using him as an example of a coach saying this guy knows the entire playbook, one of the brightest guys I've ever seen or seen in terms of knowing the playbook, but getting out there and trying to process the information fast enough was his, I'm not going to say his undoing, that was his deficiency. That's what the problem was. And there's a lot of players just like that. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets one of the highest Wonderlic scores ever, pretty decent quarterback, never anything special other than moments that got him commercials now. But outside of that, pretty mediocre career. You would think intelligence, okay, processing, two different things.
Yeah. So where did you hear that they'll be going to Florida State?
Yeah, I've seen a few things now. In fact, there was an article 4 days ago that mentioned that those two may be going to Florida State. I heard it today for the first time, but when I was looking to verify, I saw an article 4 days ago that said the same thing. Like, how far we out of the freaking
it makes sense.
Too much sense.
Considering Hunter committed to them, and if they have any questions, Deion can answer any question they have. And I'm sure he gave them the whole breakdown. If he's backing them going into the portal and transferring, I'm sure he wants them to go to somewhere that he's familiar with and going to take care of them.
See, right. Because at this point in their careers, they're looking to become bigger prospects as NFL players. Now, Shedeur, in the beginning, when things were going well, it looked like, according to people on the outside, that he had the potential to be that quarterback or be that elite NFL level quarterback. People were saying that he was going to be a first-round draft pick. I don't remember hearing scouts or even Mike Mayock or somebody. Well, Mike Mayock is not going to be able to say it now anyway, without being in
Mel Kiper.
Oakland. But Mel Kiper, you know what I mean? And I think in the beginning they had good things to say, but as they break it down and things get closer, they kind of back away from it. And even though it was a lot of sacks, I still saw things just from a rudimentary standpoint that were just like, I don't know.
I think what happened was people didn't know what to expect from Colorado. They came out like gangbusters.
That's true.
But after 4 or 5 games, you got film to break down. Okay, this is what they do well. Let's take this away. Let's take that away. And maybe Colorado just wasn't able to adjust to other teams adjusting to them, taking away what they did well.
It was the rhetoric, man, the belief, and all of these things going into Deion Sanders coming in December, then ultimately doing what he had done.
I don't want to say he was arrogant, but he probably was to an extent, saying, you know what, this is our offense. This is what we're going to do. If you stop it, hats off to you. Maybe they didn't want to change.
But that's every coach out there. Every coach on that level has an ego and believe that their way is the best way. Remember, he took over for Carl Durrell, a quarterback who was a coach who wasn't that great himself, and the guy who was responsible for the previous record, which was awful. And so I think all these coaches have this ego. It's not even Deion Sanders. It's that people who look back on Deion, they're looking back at when he was at Florida State, when he was with the Atlanta Falcons, when he was with Dallas and San Francisco, the personality he created.
Make adjustments, though. They all make adjustments. I don't know if Colorado made any.
With the players they had in a game like football that requires so many moving parts and familiarity, I think that's where the problem was, man, having all of those different parts. And I know it takes, they had enough games to kind of see where things meshed. It ultimately came down to not having the talent in the places they needed it, like the offensive line. At the skill position, they had pretty decent players. So It wasn't like that, these players, if they wanted to transfer, they could go somewhere and do something big or do something solid. Offensive line is their biggest issue. I believe this past season, they had the fewest amount of yards per carry for a running back in college football, which was under 3 yards, which is not even fullback level at other schools. I mean, awful, man.
Yeah, so, they were running game challenged.
Yeah, very running game challenged in the beginning. They were throwing out of the backfield, the dinks and dunks, and it was all working. And then people got the film, as you said. They checked out their strengths, saw their weaknesses, which were many, and they just started dominating. And on top of that, when you get to a school like Oregon, who just has more talent across the board, you get that result too.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. That was one Colorado would just want to flush down the toilet.
Yeah. And so now, if either one of these guys goes to Florida State or if both go to Florida State, I can see Travis Hunter still in the same trajectory. I think with the attention he was given, even at Colorado, even at Jackson State, he still has first-round talent. If you just talked about being a cornerback or being a playmaker, he still has first-round talent. That didn't go away. Even with the injury where he sat out for a little bit, he had an injury at Jackson State, where I think the ankle injury, but that happens. That's football. But I think he's a first-round talent anyway. Shador is where the jury is out on. And if he went somewhere else where the job isn't going to be handed to him, he's going to have to earn the job and see what he's really all about.
Plus, you look at the quarterback landscape. There's a lot of good quarterbacks out there.
Yeah, there are.
Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels. That's the guy I want the Bears to get.
Who?
Jaden Daniels.
Yo, bro. I was wrong. That dude's gonna be a
somebody
player.
Else's name is escaping me though. Who? Oh, Drake May. You got a lot of people high on Drake May. I'm not too high on Drake May, but
I'm still high on Drake May. I'm still high on Drake May. I think the team around him probably isn't, because in college, man, if you have an issue on the offensive line or whatever, that can just, even in the pros, that can just ruin everything. Even with Shador in the beginning, he was showing things. Drake May showed things this year as well. Everything overall didn't work out for him. I think when you talk about the arm talent and all these things people want to throw out there, I think you see all of that with him. The ability to read defenses. I've seen him make some boneheaded throws, but we've seen players do that and still end up in the freaking first round.
All I know is that the last quarterback the Bears picked from North Carolina,
Mitch Trubisky.
Oh well, so I don't want another North Carolina Tar Heel quarterback. No thank you.
Well, I can understand that sentiment, so I can understand that. I just think that Drake May.
That might sound stupid. Like if they all go to the combine and he's the top rated quarterback, that's a dumb reason. Well, the last one from North Carolina didn't work out, so we're not going to take him. But like I said, I talked about it in other shows. He started out really hot, and then his play curtailed
a bit. And the record showed that he fizzled a bit.
That's why I'm not high on him. They started playing better teams. His production went down.
And that's true. But we've seen him last year, too, when those better teams played against him and he stood up to the challenge and he was able to make it happen. I always give credit to Mac Brown and anyone he's coaching. He's always going to let you know what you're up against, and he's going to prepare you as best he can. And it's up to your talent to flourish. I still think that Drake May does have the talent that will flourish regardless of where he is. But one thing I can't stand when it comes to the NFL is you play all of these years, whether you're a 3-year player, 4-year player, or even a redshirt player that played 5 years, they still, as the combine gets closer or the combine is over, they start kind of disregarding some of that depending on what they hung on to during the combine. It's ridiculous. I go back when Bryant McKinney, offensive lineman for the Canes, never gave up a sack ever in high school, in college, junior college, never gave up a sack. Played in national championship games, plural, never gave up a sack. But when he was drafted, you had Leonard Davis from Texas go in front of him, a guy who did give up sacks. I mean, not a whole lot, but he gave up sacks. And I'm like, what's the point of having all of this video and knowing what he has done if you're not going to go by that? I mean, it was ridiculous. And he still, even though his career didn't turn out to be what I thought it would be as a pro, he was still a better player than Leonard Davis, who was changed to guard and moved around and pretty much out of the league after a while. So the NFL does that. I can't stand when they do that. Trust yourselves.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the one guy. He told his wife, "You got this quarterback. He's played in championship games. He started so many 25, 28 games, and you got this other quarterback. He started 8 games. Which one would you draft?" And she said, "Well, the one who's been in the championship games." That's what anybody with a brain would say, right? But the Bears picked Trubisky.
You know what? The Jets were looking to get Trubisky that year. I know it was trending towards the Jets, and I was like, no. It's not that I thought he was a bad quarterback. I just know what the Jets can do when there's a quarterback where there may be some skepticism there. If there was a bona fide number one guy or a bona fide talent, like when Brett Favre was coming out even in the second round and the Jets were trying to trend towards him, I'm excited about that because I know what the talent is. I'm just hoping they don't ruin it, but I thought he had too much talent to ruin. If he just had more talent that he could have overcome your ruination. If they end up getting Brown and Nagel, he becomes a Hall of Famer, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, man, I can agree when a quarterback is an elite quarterback and most people are trending that way. Trubisky, there was some people saying he's all right, some people saying he's not, but you just need 1 out of 32 to bite.
Unfortunately, the Bears bit. I mean, you can't take a guy with limited experience over guys who have way more experience, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, how about
And the fact that you traded up one spot to get the guy you could have not traded for and still got him.
man?
You gave up draft capital to get him.
Yeah, well, that's the
That,
best way
that
to do
made
it
no
in the
sense.
NBA. That's what you have, that draft capital, man. In the NFL. And the NBA is different because you have match salaries and all that other stuff, and draft picks don't matter as much in the NBA as they do in the NFL. But
But let's get to the games.
about to say another player before we do this, DJ Ugalele from Oregon State is now entered the transfer portal again.
I saw that.
He left from Clemson. Now he went to Oregon State. Now he's leaving Oregon State. I watched this kid play as a high school kid at Don Bosco out there in California, Bellflower, I believe. And he beat out a senior as a sophomore in high school. That senior quarterback ended up going to Iowa State. So I thought the talent was there. That guy has not lived up to it. I think he's just a dude who hopping around to different colleges, and he'll eventually end up in the pros, probably in the later rounds or whatever. But yeah, another person.
I don't know why he left Clemson, but I can see why he's leaving Oregon State.
Well, he left Clemson because he was terrible. He was awful. And Dabo Swinney got tired of biting his tongue. And you know how Dabo can get. You
but
don't
I'm
deliver,
saying
man.
Oregon State, they don't have a conference.
Well, now they don't. But they do. They can. I think they did work out something, at least whatever's remaining of the Pac-12, worked out whatever they could with the Mountain West Conference to where there may be something to be happy about next year until they could get teams to join them, which I believe the Pac may get back down to the Pac-8 for all I'm concerned. Add 6 more teams, have the Pac-8 again. It used to be that back in the 70s, 60s. But anyway, yeah, let's get to these games. Championship Saturday's here. The top game on the list. We'll ultimately get to that. But what do you want to start off with?
Start off with tomorrow's game since it's up first.
Yeah.
Oregon and Washington. As long as the coach doesn't give it up, I think Oregon wins. They probably should have won the first game, but Washington stepped up when they needed to. Something's blocking you.
Yeah, hold on.
When they played head-to-head, Washington stepped up in the fourth quarter. They made the plays to win the game. And it seems like that's been an ongoing theme for them. They played Washington State close last week, but they pulled it out at the end. If the game's close, then I'll go with the Huskies. But if Oregon plays their game and the coach doesn't get in the way, Oregon could possibly win by 10 or more.
Yeah, because that's the line right there. Vegas thinks the same thing. There's a 10-point line as it stands right now.
I didn't even know the line, but
Oregon's on fire right now. How could Washington not be on fire? They're still undefeated, and they beat Oregon, so they should still be on fire.
They've been struggling.
Yeah, but exactly. They are a struggling 10-0 right now. And that's just crazy to say that. That's why I was still saying in our yesterday
who knows? Maybe they've been looking ahead. Maybe they weren't fired up for Washington State. Washington State was what, 5-6, 6-5.
Yeah.
Who knows? Human nature. But if they don't give you no bulletin board material, maybe they just couldn't get up for them. I don't know.
They're still their in-state rivals, and they still play each other tough. And Washington State bringing their A game, whatever's left of it. Because remember, at one point, all of those Pac-12 teams, not every team, but I think it was 8 or 9 Pac-12 teams were in the top 25 at some point in the season. So that, that was a hell of a conference in the beginning. And Washington State was one of those teams also in the top 25. But going back to what
Washington, maybe they just played to the level of their opponent. Who knows?
That's probably true. But let's not forget that last game was played in Seattle when Oregon blew it themselves. And they still had opportunities to win that game. Now, there isn't going to be the confines of Seattle for Washington to pull it off or to feel comfortable. And I think Oregon, it's always hard to beat a team twice. So
yeah, I think Oregon has to win handily, because if it's close, the Huskies believe. They believe in themselves. They pulled out games left and right this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just don't think if it's a close game, I think the Huskies find a way. But as long as the coach doesn't get in the Ducks' way, they should win by 10 or more.
Yeah, and once again,
a couple turnovers here. a fourth and a 4th and 2 that you go for and you don't get, you give them the ball at the 40 there. Hey, things change.
Well, it's the Michael Penix show, the Bo Nix show. Bo Nix trying to put a lid on it. And by the way, I was talking yesterday about the Heisman, and I was talking about the votes going in early for some people. Brent Beard got in touch with me today to let me know that the voting is going to be done on Monday. All right, so these championship games will get played, and then these voters will have what they've seen in the championship games to add to their decision making when they decide to do that.
That's the way it should be.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
so
no
Bo
votes
Nix,
should already be in.
Because there are coaches who do it, early. That would not coaches but voters. But now Bo Nix plays and knows that Heisman is on. He's looking at the bigger picture as well. But that individual trophy is not going to be a bad thing for him, considering his route to getting there, coming from Auburn, going to Oregon, not playing well initially against Georgia, getting smacked, in fact, and now being where he is now, the most starts in college history at his quarterback position. Pretty damn awesome for Bo Nix. But he gets a chance to try to get that 5 spot. 6 touchdowns. Washington can respond also. Michael Penix can get himself back to the top echelon. I still think it's a 2-man race between Jaden Daniels from LSU with his sick numbers, running and throwing and a completion percentage.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was the first player in college football history to pass for 350 yards and run for 200 plus in the same game.
Yep, he killed it. I think the dude just absolutely murdered.
That's crazy.
And that's the thing that should win the Heisman for him. But because of the team having 3 losses, and unless there's that SEC bias, and in some cases, having the SEC bias is just relegated in the Southeast because other regions don't like them. So it may be a reason for them to vote against them. But I think if it comes down to those two, I still go with Bo Nix. But, as a pro, we may have a different conversation. When it comes down to it.
Saturday's game will have a big impact on the voting.
Oh, yeah, it should.
Oregon and Washington, let's say it's 17-13. Neither quarterback is impressive. I think a lot of the voters say, you know what, let's go with Jaden Daniels.
I can dig that too. I'm not going to be mad this year at any.
I'm saying if Penix wants to win it, if Nix wants to win it, they have to show and prove on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that goes without saying.
Or Friday, tomorrow night.
Or Friday night when they play Oregon, plays against Washington, and then you go into the SEC championship game, where LSU won't be playing. So I think, for LSU, it's pretty much done for them. They got to sit back and wait. At least Jaden Daniels has to sit back and wait to the bowl game. The voting is going to be handled and the trophy will be delivered before then. But in any event.
Well, at least he went out with a bang on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. He just, a much better player than I thought. In the beginning of the season, I thought Garrett Nussmeier would be seeing some playing time and not just in garbage time. And no, it didn't happen that way. And I'm glad I was wrong, because you get to see the talent flow, a legitimate quarterback, not some creation of a specific offense, just a damn good talented quarterback. And that's what we're going to get. So, those two are pretty much up. But it's Bo Nix's Heisman to lose because he does get that last showing in a pretty much a postseason game.
Yeah, pretty much.
We'll see. Now, which game you want to talk about now? I can't say the big game, because everyone thinks that the SEC is always amping themselves up when they probably shouldn't. Nah, I think the SEC championship game is probably.
But if you look at those games, you got Iowa versus Michigan. So Georgia, Alabama is bigger than that one.
Absolutely.
You got Florida State versus LSU. Florida State without their starting quarterback.
Louisville.
So Alabama's LSU. Yeah, Louisville.
Right. Hey, Brock, what are you saying now? Hey, Josh Brock, what are you talking about?
Jaden Daniels on the brain, man. Jaden Daniels, LSU. No, but Louisville versus Florida State. Florida State's without their starting quarterback.
Yep.
So Georgia, Alabama, everybody seems to be healthy.
Everybody seems to be healthy.
At least everybody that's important. So, that game is bigger than the other two.
So didn't you say that Nick Saban was already politicking, trying to push the envelope?
According to Bleacher Report, he is politicking, saying if it's not Georgia, then Alabama has to be in the playoffs. So he's saying if they win, they deserve to be in the playoff.
Oh man,
well, I can't just roll with that. If they win 40-10,
okay.
But it all depends how it goes down. if they win 3-0, it's garbage ass game worse than the Vikings and Bears. Hell no. Both of them get out of there.
See, the deal here is that Texas beat Alabama early in the season, and we already know it's not the same Alabama team, but you know what? It's happenstance. That is what happened. They were beaten in Tuscaloosa. They were beaten pretty badly, historically badly, and for Tuscaloosa fans and the Nick Saban era. And so Texas is always going to be in front of them as they have been all year long. And I thought the only way they could leapfrog Texas would be to beat Georgia if Georgia's still number one, which they are right now. Now, how far do they jump? How far do they jump though? If they do beat, they beat.
It depends on how they do it. If they win handily, like I said, 40-10, 35-13, even, then yeah, if they take them out back, then I believe Bama's a top 4 team. But if it's 17-14, 13-10, no, I don't think they jump.
Because we will still have that scenario regardless of a one-loss team, because now if Washington loses to Oregon, then you have Oregon as a one-loss team still in front of Bama. Do they skip them too? Bad enough they're going to skip Texas, a team that beat them head-to-head. Now you're going to skip Oregon, a one-loss team as well, if they are Pac-12 champs. Bro, Nick Saban crying alone isn't going to be enough. You're going to have some Oregon fans and Pac-12 people just complaining. Even if this is the last year Oregon's in the Pac-12, you might have some Big Ten people complaining. That's our team for next year. We're crying on their behalf right now.
I can't be mad at him for politicking. He wants to get in there, but you got to wait until Saturday. Like if they just blast Georgia, then by all means, come on. Hey, if we didn't look like a top 4 team tonight, there are no top 4 teams. Say whatever you want to say after you kick their ass. But on Thursday, 2 days before the game, and you don't know the result of the game, again, if you just squeak out a victory and it's not very impressive in the ugly game, I don't think they should jump anybody.
They'll just tell you that's SEC football. It's very defensive, and don't be offended by the offense that's not there. That's pretty much what it comes down to. At the same time, if Alabama at number 8, I believe they are right now,
they can miss me with that. They can miss me.
That's what they do, though. They're going to do it regardless. So if Alabama does beat Georgia, Georgia needs to go further down than they went a couple of years ago when Alabama did beat them in the SEC championship game. They only went down just a little bit and still were in the playoffs and got themselves a national championship while there because Bama couldn't beat them twice.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is whether it's 4 or 8 or 12, somebody's always going to be upset. Somebody's going to always say, oh, we should have been ahead of this team or that team. It doesn't matter. It could be 24 and there'd be 4 teams crying that they should have been the 24th team. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Look at March Madness. They got 65 plus a couple playing games or 64 and a couple playing games, and people still cry, oh, we should have been in. We got in. If you're on the bubble and you don't get in there, that's your fault for not winning a few more games.
And so we have the Pac-12, the Big 12 game, Texas taking on Oklahoma State. It seems like an afterthought, but an upset can't happen. But it still seems like an afterthought, so Texas may still have their claim just as much. They can still complain, and they do have the money to make things happen while complaining. If they win, Bama wins, and they still beat Bama earlier this year, that one-loss team ends up jumping in front of them. Man, I think all hell's going to break loose, especially knowing they're going to the SEC next season along with Oklahoma to compete. I'm just looking at this for what it is right now. Man, I mean, I'm not a Texas fan. I'm not a Bama fan, but man,
it could be how they beat Oklahoma State as well. If they win in the squeaker,
oh my God!
If they win in the squeaker or sleeper, whatever you want to call it, and it don't look good, then the committee may want to put Alabama ahead of them.
The Texas is about
a bad win for Texas and a great win for Alabama. Alabama might probably jump them.
That head-to-head matchup, though, matters for something.
And I'm with you there. I'm not saying I agree with it, but
I know, and they shouldn't think like that either.
That's the way things seem to work out.
These are supposed to be people who know what the hell they're doing, and if they decide to just say that regular season win didn't mean anything in Tuscaloosa, they're just as bad as the delusional fans from whatever team thinks that they belong in there when they don't belong in there. that's ridiculous because now you're kind of nullifying the regular season like it's not as important as it should be. You would think in football as opposed to basketball where there are so many games played that each game has some significance. Right. That game had hellified significance so early on. The only thing it didn't have significance in is that it wasn't a conference game for either team. But in terms of those powerhouse teams you need to jump off a season and to get the blood boiling or to get people talking and seeing what's going on now, that was the game.
See, my thing was before the playoffs started, before the BCS, my thing was, if you're a one-loss team, who cares if you lost in September? Yeah. You lost. You got to know that when there was no playoff game, every game mattered. Didn't matter that you lost on August 29th or September 3rd, and then you won 10 games in a row. You still lost. You shouldn't have lost. The season was the playoff, and you lost week 1.
Yep, and that's the truth, man. That was the second game of the season that Alabama had, or third game. I think it was the second game of the season.
Second or third. I'm just saying the way
they lost early.
It used to be, but people always going to complain. They gave them a playoff. They gave them the BCS. The BCS wasn't good enough. Now there's a playoff. 4 teams isn't enough. Now they're going to 8. In 5 years, 8's not going to be enough. They're going to be fucking playing 16 games like an NFL.
You know what? These guys should play like that. How come Division I AA or FCS hasn't had problems like this? And they have a lot more teams in their playoffs and all of that stuff that they talk about student athletes. They're student athletes too. In fact, you could argue that they're legitimate student athletes, considering that the majority of their players don't have NFL opportunities or aren't going to the NFL, whereas there's a higher percentage in the 1A ranks, the FBS, that are going to go. So, and they're still able to work around their tough schedules of academics and so forth, and still have a playoff, and they've been doing it for years, decades. And it hasn't been an issue. But I understand about the logistics and the money because it still comes down to that.
It could be the bowls too. You know, the bowls had ties.
That's what I'm saying. The logistics, the bowl ties. Yeah, but you know what? If they gave a damn about the bowls, what are we going to do about this Big Ten Pac-12 matchup now? Or Pac-2 matchup now? Where's the Rose Bowl? What is that going to have any significance?
Who are they matching up with now?
I'm seriously on the year that
West winner.
I'm serious. In the year that the Rose Bowl isn't going to be part or isn't going to be the championship game or one of the pods, what's going to become of it? Someone playing from what is going to end up? What champions from where are going to end up?
Yeah. In the Big Ten is not even going to have divisions. And let's say let's just say Rutgers wins the Big Ten one year, then they got to go all the way to California for their bowl game, and play. They don't even know who they're gonna play. What if they pair up the Rose Bowl with the ACC eventually? Because you want to have a big matchup. You're gonna have 2 East Coast teams going to California to play in the bowl game.
Like 20 people in the stands. Everybody gonna have their own session.
Unless USC, UCLA, one of those West Coast teams plays in the Rose Bowl, it's not gonna make a lot of sense.
No, it's not. So so pretty much what we're talking about now in terms of whether Pac-12 or Pac-10 or Pac-2 now, once this season is over, everybody going over. Look, geography doesn't matter anymore. We saw that during the early season or even before that when all these teams decided to just decide that they're Midwestern teams, even though they're still hanging on to California and Seattle, Washington, and all these other places. And then even Florida State at one time was talking about coming to the Midwest. That don't make sense. None of this makes sense, but the bowl games and the logistics that come with it, that's where the sticking point is. There's too much money tied up in these bowl games. And these teams that still are the elite teams that are now going into these super conferences, because that's what it's becoming, they want that money as well. And the wins and the glory, they want the whole enchilada. I think they still may go down to making a whole conference just for the power teams, not even Power 5, just the elite teams, about 25, 30 of them, and shun everyone else. Let them just fend for themselves.
I believe I said that in the summertime, that eventually these big leagues are just going to have their own pretty much league. Play each other in round robins and not even play other schools.
That's been a point of contention for a few years now. And that's why I was hoping that happened, because the NCAA is going to finally get what I believe they deserved for all of these years of treating the players and athletes and everybody as they have. Not saying that players shouldn't get paid, but things that they had done, like with Brian Bosworth. He did use roids and whatnot, but the way they treated him and other players, when coaches leave and just cause havoc, the players got to suffer. and all this other nonsense.
Mhm.
That type of thing that they look at the players crock-eyed as the coach leaves and either goes to the NFL and kind of untouchable, but they still screw the kids
No,
in the
but
school.
a lot of their rules, like you get a kid from California or Florida take a recruiting trip to Chicago in December, and he doesn't know that it's 30 degrees out, and you can't buy the kid a jacket.
Yeah, and that's the truth. Man, so many stories as it goes. I remember Barry Switzer saying that he had taken care of one of his players years ago. If you read his book, Bootlegger's Son, I read that thing so long ago. But anyway, he was talking about how he helped one of his players, and the NCAA was on top of him. This guy had a kid in the whole nine, and he had some real tough circumstances, and the NCAA came down on him about that. He was like, screw y'all, I'm doing it anyway. You know what I'm saying? But that's Barry Switzer, and he was powerful back then. You have coaches at smaller schools who probably do the same, and they're hoping they don't get caught or hoping someone doesn't come down on them, and they end up losing scholarships or getting reprimanded in some crazy way that's going to affect the program in the long term. Ridiculous, man. So I'm glad if the NCAA is not part of college football in the future. I would be happy as hell. Just whatever name they could come up with for the Big Ten, SEC, everybody, shoot, might just be those two anyway. I think the ACC might get sucked up by the SEC soon.
Could be.
Anyway,
Yes.
Any closing notes? I know there's some basketball going on you might be chomping at the bit about.
No, not really. I'm trying to think. You got Ryan Garcia fighting Saturday.
You know what? I didn't even
I
know. Bruh, come
yeah,
on.
he's fighting. I know the kid's last name, Duarte. I can't remember his first name, but I guess the press conference was interesting because Ryan Garcia was trashing Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya.
What? Oh, because of the relationship they had?
Yeah, I guess he's trying to get away from Golden Boy.
Bad crap. That is a bad contract.
Or they weren't there to support him after he lost to Tank.
He's still on that?
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I don't know exactly what was said, but I saw a picture of Garcia at the podium and De La Hoya in the background like this. Like, oh my gosh, what is this kid saying? Not that De La Hoya is a saint or anything, but hey, you signed the contract, kid.
Exactly, man. Live with it. Be a man. You claim you're a man. You should know what you're doing. You have all of these people around you saying yes and yes and yes, and they're supposed to be intelligent. They're supposed to also know that these contracts are valid and binding legally. Also basketball-wise, we talked about Josh Giddey yesterday and the issue that's going on with him with California deciding to investigate. Now, as this discovery, I guess, is going on, the story is it was last year that has now been regurgitated. She was allegedly 15 then, 16 now, and the story continues to go. So we'll continue to peel back this onion as it goes on. But damn, it doesn't seem like it's getting better because yesterday,
I could not know
better use it today.
How could you not know she was 15, man?
But I'm from Australia, and I'm 21. That means he was 20 the year before. Bro, she's still 15. And even in this country, well, you know what? In Ohio, I believe 15 is the legal age. Craziness. But that's another story for another day. We need a lawyer to talk about that.
I'll wait for more details.
Yeah,
but,
because
if that's true, she was 15. I don't know. And he's not making a statement, right? He hasn't said anything.
Nah, he better keep his mouth shut, man. You can only say bad things. Saying hi is enough to get you locked up right now over this. Man, you can lose everything you got going on. And I was listening to
I'm sure he didn't come from Australia alone. Who's with him that's not saying, hey, that's a little girl.
You can see a 15-year-old girl. I know guys try to save face by saying, man, she had the body of a woman. A 15-year-old when she speaks. I don't care how her body looks. When she starts speaking to you, you already know or have a hell of an idea. This isn't an adult. This is probably not even a high-end teenager. You can tell that the crap that comes out of their mouth sounds like a freaking baby.
Yeah, I mean, you should know if you're talking to a kid or an adult. And that's the bottom line. I don't care what she looks like.
And in the NBA, though, bro, so many other options. You chose this. It's like a bad lottery ticket, man.
I don't know. He went the opposite route Well, it's not the opposite, but Zion's in the clubs.
You know what? Zion
But
got legal chicks
he
going
don't want to.
around.
He don't want to go to the clubs. So I don't know. Like, how do you meet a 15-year-old? I don't get it, man.
In Walmart in the crayon section. Come on, man. Arts and crafts.
He was shopping for a Halloween mask and ran into or something.
For real. Oh, you look nice in that cat lady outfit. Oh my God. Come on. Anyway,
I don't know. I don't want to say too much because I don't know.
Well, I'm
all
just
the
piecing it
details,
together.
but if they had intimate relations and she was 15, 16 now,
bro,
that dude, he's got a problem.
You're pretty much done. I mean, you're pretty much done in this environment. First of all, any environment that should be the case, but there's like a hyper focus now on people like this because, even though her age is still, they're claiming 15 last year, 16 this year, and the news will still continue to come out about it. We're in a society today that puts hyper focus on these types of things, whether they're legitimate or not. If there's someone making the accusation as a woman, it puts the man in a hot spot to begin with. Your goal or dream or even desire is to not be in that spot at all. Do not hang with the 15-year-old to begin with. We just saw the nonsense with Trevor Bauer in baseball and how he was soiled and how they dragged him through the mud and he was finally vindicated and gave that chick what she deserved. Ridiculous, man. I hope this doesn't turn out to be like that. But, man, he just has
the odd thing is, like, who's leading the charge for this? Like, who leaked the story? You know
I would
just
think somebody's parents had to come out for something like that. That's the only thing I could come up with. A parent might have found something out, or did they find out when she was 15, couldn't get the money they wanted out of the extortion, or to keep quiet money, and this is where they are now. I don't know. So that's why we may have to wait. Well, we have to wait.
I don't know, because usually in situations like this, there's somebody leading the charge, right? Somebody, the face of the movement, speaking to the media. That person doesn't exist.
No, not right now.
Anyway.
And as this stuff come up, because when I heard it last week, I thought it was something that happened recently. Now I'm hearing last year, and now we have this year, and we're near the end of this year. So anyways, man, so they kept this under wraps all this time, or what? I don't know. That's why it leads me to believe there's a parent involved. I'm not going to say that they.
Why hasn't the NBA done anything yet?
Exactly. Well, if the NBA is just finding out, that's another story. Because they said it happened last year because they might have found out from the parent or someone close to the girl, then, what would Adam Silver even know? Now that it's all out there, Adam Silver needs to start speaking. And
exactly.
Josh Giddey needs to stay quiet because things are going to be good for him. And anyway.
They may want to suspend him while they do their investigation.
Man, and that's a bad deal right there, too, because they're stuck. They have a catch-22.
But it's a bad look. Every time he takes the court, I'm sure there's going to be protesters outside. I don't know if they'll be talking about broadcast, but there's going to be people in there calling him names, calling him out his name, calling him Chester or whatever.
Not even knowing anything. See, if we're talking R. Kelly, someone with a history of doing this kind of thing, that's one thing. This guy here, we don't know anything other than what we get piece by piece so far. And so all these people, and I know how they like jumping to conclusions, especially if there's an agenda to advance, because, when the age of toxic masculinity and all that nonsense, they'll just have him guilty until proven innocent. And that's what he is right now, because if the NBA suspends him over that, can he sue the NBA because of that? Because he hasn't been charged with anything. This is all hearsay up until now.
Yeah, but, you got to protect the brand.
And that's true too, but you have to be cautious. And isn't Adam Silver a lawyer?
But it say, you know what? We're going to just suspend you until we conduct our investigation.
It's unfair.
If they don't find anything, you come back. They do find anything, well, you missed 25 games. We're going to suspend you for 50
for the rest of the season.
Or good luck with your criminal charges.
Yeah, right. But I think the safe thing for the NBA to do right now is to let this guy play, say the right things about we're getting through the process and we're looking and collecting information. I think that's the best thing to do, because I think there could be some type of a lawsuit if he's suspended pretty much for no reason other than speculation, an accusation.
I don't know. I think it's weak to let him play. Yeah, I mean, they're serious allegations, though.
Yeah, those are serious allegations, but still, man, too much volatility when it comes down to people just saying things these days. As serious as it sounds, man, imagine if this thing's not even legit. Then what? then they owe him the NBA. I mean, is there even a monetary amount you could put on
Well,
this?
you start by sitting him down. All right, you tell me
Punishing the
exactly
guy for
what
no
happened.
reason if there's no
No,
other than
I'm saying
accusation.
sit him down. Tell us exactly what happened. And then if
Decides
you
to
find
explain
out
it.
he lied to Jim Harbaugh,
Oh, he's gonna get what he's gonna get ultimately.
then
He's
you drop the hammer even harder because you had an opportunity to tell the full story. We find out you lied. Now you're gonna get worse. But it's Adam Silver. The NBA is soft as hell.
yeah,
He,
but he's
he'll probably go to jail before he gets suspended.
but he's gonna get what he gets ultimately, whether it's the good end or the bad end. He's ultimately gonna get what he deserves. So, and that's pretty much what it is right now. After we come back, probably on Monday, there may be more to this story because it's looking like it's picking up a lot of momentum now. Uh, I mean, it happened a year ago. Now it
So
started like
so
last
let's
week.
pick our top four. What's it gonna be after the games?
After the games are played this weekend, I think the number one
I didn't
team
make my pick. I didn't make my pick for Georgia, Alabama.
pick your Georgia
I'm going.
Alabama game
I'm
right now.
going with the Tide. I'm going with Alabama.
Oh,
I
really?
think. I think they're more tested, and that makes them more prepared for this matchup Saturday. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think they're going to win easily, but probably something like 27-20.
Okay, I'm going to go with Georgia, and the reason why is because obviously not every player is
Because
there.
you
They
picked
lost
them
all
on
these.
Monday.
Yeah, and there's a lot of players on this team that haven't been around for the championship, but they've picked up those 5-star players, and Carson Beck is the 4-star player who's now looking like a legitimate quarterback. And now they still have that offense. Lat McConkey, we already know that. We already know Brock Bowers, even with the banged up ankle, we know that those guys can play. Alabama and what they've done from the beginning of the season till now is amazing. Nothing short of it, especially with Jalen Moreau leading the way. But we also saw along that path just last week against Auburn the issues he had passing the ball as well. He could still run. You're not going to do that running with Georgia too often. Athlete for athlete, they can match Alabama. There aren't many teams in the SEC or in the country that can match Alabama at this point, especially athlete for athlete. Texas was that team. That's not in the SEC. Georgia can do that. And I think a quarterback matchup, quarterback v quarterback, Georgia has the better quarterback, more stability at that position. I think they win because of it. And it's going to be a typical SEC game, so I could see 24-17, something like that. I'm not thinking about 30 spots and all of that other nonsense because Alabama's defense is that good. Jalen Moreau can't continue to run past the line of scrimmage and throw these illegal forward passes as he did against a team like Auburn. Georgia's going to benefit from that when they get the yardage or you lose the yardage and give them more opportunity. Georgia, 24-17, somewhere around there.
So we're gonna agree on Michigan, right? Michigan's
Michigan,
gonna be
yes,
Iowa.
Michigan.
So I got
Take the
Michigan.
under of anything over there with Iowa, Michigan.
I think Oregon's gonna beat Washington, so I think Oregon's gonna sneak in there.
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
Oregon. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the Seminoles are gonna lose to Louisville.
Yeah, they are. And the quarterback situation is the reason why. I think this is another one of those quarterback v quarterback deals. And with Jordan Travis out, that's pretty much what it
So
comes down to.
that means in my scenario, there's a bunch of one-loss teams.
A bunch of one-loss
Ohio
teams
State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Washington.
and Texas.
And
We're
if you're
taking it for
Washington,
granted.
you're like, well, at least we beat the team we lost to.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the argument they can make. But I remember just years ago, remember when the Nebraska-Colorado thing, when the Canes played them, they're talking about that's why they had all this
Colorado
talk.
had 2 losses. Get out
Exactly.
of here.
But
Hit me with that.
they still won the conference championship, though.
They still had 2 losses. They do
Yeah.
not deserve to be in the championship game.
No, they didn't deserve, but I mean, it didn't make
Well,
it,
then
when you
they
just look at it on the
should have
surface,
left.
you say, damn, you got the conference champions there and you have the other team there. It doesn't pass the hearing test when you just hear, okay, champions not there, runner-ups are there. It doesn't make sense. But ultimately, that's what this is all about when they started adding all these other tiers, the BCS, and now we have the college football playoffs. And here we are now. But I think Texas beating Oklahoma State, another huge game. I mean, another
So
huge score.
in that scenario, if it plays out the way I think the games will go, got Michigan, not Washington, Oregon. I think Ohio State gets back in, and then
That's what I was thinking.
probably going to be Alabama.
Man, I'm just looking at the firestorm that's going to come.
It would be so much easier if Georgia wins and Washington wins.
Exactly.
Florida State wins.
Alabama beats Georgia and Texas is likely going to beat Oklahoma State. Man, there's going to be nothing but a firestorm. There's going to be issues everywhere, and these are legitimate issues because the head-to-head matchup was already made, and the only way those two could play again is if they're both in the playoffs. But I think if one has to be in the playoffs, it should be Texas, even if Alabama beats Georgia. Now, the score matters.
They have to take the Cowboys out back, man.
Oh, they are
47-10 at least. Something
they got to put it on them. They got
something in that neighborhood to be like, yo, we're not sneaking in. We're going for it.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian, he had that on his mind. He was at USC before, and I mean he was at BYU, of course. He quarterback there. They're used to putting up big points. He still has the offensive mind. They know what they have to do. They're looking specifically to get that benefit of the doubt to get into the college football playoffs. So they're going to put up as many points as they possibly can. It's going to be all about unsportsmanlike conduct in terms of putting up the points. If they put up 70 points, they're still throwing the ball.
So if it's not Alabama, I'll say it's Texas. Texas will be 5. But I'm saying Michigan, Oregon because they beat Washington.
Yeah.
Ohio State sneaks in because Alabama beat Georgia. And then I'm going to say it's Alabama over Texas because they beat Georgia.
Alabama jumps over way too many people at the spot they're in right now to get into the playoffs. That means they're going to jump over Texas. And if Oregon wins, they're jumping over Oregon.
I wouldn't pick them, but I think that's what will happen.
How could they do that with a good conscience? I mean, how could these voters, people making these decisions who supposedly love college football, make that kind of a decision? Even with Nick Saban,
because they're going to say, "Well, you got 2-time defending champs won how many games? Is it 30 games in a row, or however many games, and they beat them? So they deserve
true, man.
That's going to be the argument,
man. But yeah, the argument may be there, but these one-loss teams in front of them, man, the team that beat them head-to-head, you still have Oregon who put up a fantastic season. And if they beat Washington, man, they're still ahead of Alabama by more than one spot. Texas is the one that's in front of them by one spot.
Yeah.
But God, they're jumping all these teams just because of that one win. But now if they beat Georgia like that, now we can say, wow, Georgia lost to the 8th team. Well, they could be number 5 now, so we have a clear whole new number 4, and Alabama still shouldn't be in there. Okay, now we can say Alabama deserves to be number 7 and put Georgia at number 8. Still out of the top 4.
Yeah, I'd prefer for Bama not to be in it, even if they win. I just think that they will somehow make it.
Luckily, Georgia will handle business on Saturday, and Alabama would just be a team we're looking at for 2024. Jalen Monroe for Heisman, man. How about that? Get on that early. Jalen Monroe for Heisman. I can dig it, but that's what it looks like it's going to happen anyway because this Georgia team, I think, resting these guys as they did against Georgia Tech was a reason. It was on purpose, and these guys are not going to see you get healthy in just 1 week, but they're feeling better now than they would have felt if they played Georgia Tech last week, especially Brock with a sore ankle. So Georgia takes on Alabama, beats them. So the top 4 teams after this is said and done on Saturday night or last Sunday morning, Georgia should be number 1. I think Michigan still would be number 1. That was my team from the very beginning. But Michigan should still be number 2 because Iowa's just there in attendance. And then Oregon slides in there because of the beating they give Washington. And then you have Ohio State creeping in there because they didn't get beaten bad enough when they played Michigan in the Big House.
Yeah, at least they can say, well, we got beat by an undefeated team.
Yeah, exactly. The only one.
Right.
So, but that's going to end this show for today. We'll have more to talk about on Monday. We'll be kind of rehashing.
And on the road.
On the road? Yeah, exactly.
Ohio State was
on the road against Ohio State. I know it was Ryan Day's 3rd straight loss to Michigan that could put his job in jeopardy. We saw what it done to John Cooper years ago, but I doubt that's the case right now. A different climate in college football. I think Ryan Day's championship is somewhere within the near future because he just continues to recruit like Urban Meyer did. But anyways, he's biased. I'm Trav. Sports Bag Bros podcast is signing off for our weekend.
Enjoy the game. See you on Monday.
Peace. Deuces.